Bien tous, pour cette émission internationale spéciale, nous avons le plaisir d'accueillir le Premier ministre de l'Autorité nationale palestinienne, Salam Fayyad. Bonsoir, Monsieur le Premier ministre.
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good evening to you. Pleasure to be with you.
Nous accueillons à l'occasion de votre première visite officielle en France en tant que Premier ministre de l'Autorité nationale palestinienne. Alors, pour vous interroger avec moi, Bruno Darroux de Radio France Internationale. Bonsoir, Monsieur le Premier ministre.
From Radio France International.
Et Gilles Paris du journal Le Monde.
Gilles Paris from the Monde newspaper.
Alors,
bonsoir.
En quelques mots, pour résumer votre carrière, Monsieur le Premier ministre, vous êtes né en Cisjordanie, vous êtes économiste, vous avez fait une grande partie de vos études aux États-Unis, vous avez travaillé pour le Fonds monétaire international et pour la Banque mondiale, vous avez été ministre des Finances de l'Autorité palestinienne de 2002 à 2007, et vous êtes Premier ministre depuis juin 2007. Alors, beaucoup d'actualités au Proche-Orient, dans le monde arabe, les révolutions en Tunisie, en Égypte, les conséquences de ces événements sur le conflit israélo-palestinien, la volonté aussi de votre gouvernement de construire un État palestinien malgré les divisions avec le Hamas, qui contrôle toujours la bande de Gaza. Quels sont les besoins aussi de l'autorité palestinienne, les besoins financiers et les besoins de soutien politique. Avant de parler de toutes ces questions avec vous, Monsieur le Premier ministre, un rappel de l'enjeu palestinien au cœur de ce très complexe et très Proche-Orient avec Americano.
Israël-Palestine, 63 ans de conflit et négociations à nouveau au point mort. Les derniers pourparlers directs entamés en septembre à Washington ont échoué après seulement quelques semaines de discussion. En décembre, la secrétaire d'État américaine Hillary Clinton avouait son impuissance. Les États-Unis et la communauté internationale ne peuvent pas imposer une solution. Et même si on le pouvait, nous ne le ferions pas, car seul un accord négocié entre les deux parties pourra être durable. Mais encore faut-il que celles-ci le veuillent. Mais cela ne semble pas d'actualité. Côté israélien, le gouvernement est plus intransigeant que jamais, la colonisation se poursuit autour de Jérusalem-Est et aucune concession ne semble à l'ordre du jour. L'autorité palestinienne, quant à elle, est toujours autant affaiblie par sa lutte interne avec le Hamas qui contrôle la bande de Gaza. Mais surtout, les deux parties doivent maintenant faire face à un contexte inattendu. Les révolutions arabes. Les révoltes à Tunis et au Caire monopolisent l'attention internationale et marginalise le conflit israélo-palestinien. La révolte égyptienne, surtout, plonge dans l'embarras Israël comme la Palestine. Car l'Égypte est depuis 30 ans une pièce centrale des négociations au Proche-Orient. L'attention de Tel Aviv est donc focalisée depuis 10 jours sur les événements du Caire. Le Premier ministre Benjamin Netanyahou a été clair cette semaine. Israël craint la déstabilisation d'un des rares régimes avec qui il est en paix dans la région.
Je vous rappelle que la paix entre Israël et l'Égypte dure depuis plus de 30 ans et notre objectif est de faire en sorte que ces bonnes relations se poursuivent.
Même inquiétude du côté de l'autorité palestinienne, car l'Égypte a toujours soutenu le Fatah dans sa lutte contre le Hamas. Aujourd'hui, Mahmoud Abbas craint que d'éventuelles élections libres portent les frères musulmans au pouvoir. À Ramallah, la police empêche donc toute manifestation de soutien aux Égyptiens, alors que le mouvement anti-Moubarak est très populaire dans les territoires occupés.
Ce qui se passe en Égypte aurait dû se produire il y a des décennies. Nous supportons le peuple égyptien et on espère que le changement se fera pour le meilleur, pas pour le pire.
Difficile à l'heure actuelle de savoir quel sera l'impact concret de la révolution égyptienne sur les négociations israélo-palestiniennes. Une chose est sûre cependant, la donne géopolitique est en train de changer et Israël, comme la Palestine, vont devoir adapter leur stratégie.
Alors, Monsieur le Premier ministre, nous allons bien sûr parler dans quelques instants du conflit israélo-palestinien, mais d'abord, si vous le voulez bien, situation en Égypte, ça concerne évidemment l'ensemble du monde arabe, avec une question centrale, le sort du président Moubarak. Est-ce que le président égyptien actuel peut assurer la transition, selon vous, ou devrait-il quitter le pouvoir tout de suite?
I said yesterday when asked this very same question, and this is on the minds of many analysts, observers, given its huge importance and implications, that I certainly, as Palestinian official, would not want to put myself in a long list of advisors and engage in prognosis as to what should happen in Egypt. I think they will figure it out. As far as I'm concerned, the issue is the nature, fundamental nature of what's going on, what was described as the revolt, and its basis, genesis, fundamental nature, beginning in Tunisia. I personally read that as an expression of strong desire for positive change in the direction of attainment of citizens' rights in political sense, enfranchisement, if you will, something which has been missing. Issues of political reform, that's what's important. I think it's important to not view this with apprehension or certainly not hostility. This desire for positive change is something that should be honored and respected, I believe, and it's an important element for the development and positive evolution in the region as a whole.
Bruno Darroux.
Le gouvernement égyptien, Monsieur le Premier
The Egyptian
ministre,
government, Mr. Prime Minister, has announced a certain number of measures to move towards a transition. Do you feel, as the Americans do, that these transition measures are inadequate?
You know, we are in a period of transition. As a matter of fact, after all, these demonstrations started only 11 days ago. It is definitely a matter of great deal of concern, given Egypt, what it stands for, the Egyptian people, Egypt's long-standing important role in the regional sense, indeed internationally, to view this in the perspective and the context in which it's happening. It's been only 11 days since it happened. It's important to definitely, given all of what I said, to avoid at any and all cost violence, for sure, and to preserve life, and to allow these processes to move forward in as an evolutionary way as is possible under the circumstances. What I find, continuing to happen is a constant case of guessing and second guessing while events are unfolding. There's all kinds of advice, coming from all kinds of directions, bombardment of it. It's difficult as it is on the ground to manage, given the challenge, to do it in the context of, conflicting advice coming from all kinds of directions adds to it. I believe, in what I said, I mean to say that it's not really important to move as quickly as possible to bring this to an end in a manner that assures everybody. In substance, and this is what I'm really interested in, it's important to view what's going on as something not to be resisted, not to be dismissed, but instead something to be honored and respected, and to deal with it from this perspective. That's what's really important. And as I said, I not want to add my name to the long list of self-proclaimed advisors insofar as the Egyptian situation is concerned. But as I said, it's part of what I see as a process of political change and a reflection of strong desire for reform, in a political sense.
Gilles Paris.
For the territory that concerns you, the West Bank, it's difficult to understand why the Palestinian Authority did not allow the Palestinians to express their solidarity with the Egyptians. How can you justify that prohibition?
Solidarity is a word that comes to mind certainly when describing the relationship and feelings that we Palestinians hold toward Egypt historically, and we continue to do so. We have rules for demonstrations requiring that the authorities be duly notified of the intention of whomever wishing to demonstrate to actually do so. The case that you refer to, there was not compliance with this requirement. We would have granted permission for the demonstrations to proceed. Indeed, we received requests for demonstrations for tomorrow, and those requests were granted in more than one city. The right to assemble, to demonstrate, right of expression is guaranteed under the Palestinian Constitution, and we're going to really continue to adhere to this policy. By the way, I mean, if I may just quickly add, definitely based on what I just told you, this is not something that we view with hostility at all. To the contrary, it's very much consistent. This expression of desire for political reform, for enfranchisement. It's something that is very much consistent with what we Palestinians are trying to accomplish and consistent with the very values on which we want to build our state.
Mais au-delà des réformes qui sont en
above
train
and beyond
peut-être de
the
se mettre en place en
reforms that
Égypte,
are
est-ce que vous
perhaps
pensez que
coming about in
l'Occident
Egypt, do you think that
est
the
en train de
Western
lâcher
world
Moubarak
is
et
letting
est-ce que vous pensez
Mubarak
que
go?
s'ils lâchent Moubarak,
And
il a
if they
tort de
do
le
let
faire?
him go, are they wrong to let him go?
You know, I do believe it's important to put things in some perspective. It was not long ago, I mean, as a matter of fact, a matter of days, when issues in the region were looked at through a different prism. I think fundamentally this is what requires change, and not so much focus on you know, the self-righteousness with which, you know, issue is being looked at by countries large and small around the world. You know, from the United States to the Maldives, you know, everybody is delving into the issue and offering advice. I think it really should be once and for all left up to people in the region to decide their own fate and destiny, and for Arab people to be looked at in the same way and through the same prism that people of other nationalities are looked at, insofar as their needs, aspirations, the key amongst which is the aspiration to live as free people with dignity and political rights in their own countries. I think this process ought to be respected and allowed to unfold, however which way domestic political processes, and given you know, all interests by all spectra and all segments of society. Let our people, let people in Egypt determine their own fate and destiny, and let them be the masters of that, and let them lead that change and fulfill their aspirations away from this prescriptive approach to what should happen in the Arab world. It's about time for that approach to be abandoned and for the needs of Arabs throughout the Arab world to be allowed to find their own way.
Mr. Prime Minister, not giving lessons, but President Mubarak represented for 30 years a certain stability in Egypt. It's a very important and essential element in the Near East. If President Mubarak were, for any reason, to leave power, would this region then risk a kind of a major instability?
You know, the issues of the region were typically and for long viewed through this prism, actually, of a trade-off between stability on the one hand, openness, democracy on the other, as if those are necessarily mutually exclusive goals. I think that's wrong. Actually, stability from a longer-term point of view is consistent only with representative government and with good governance based on solid governance processes and institutions that are responsive to people's needs, including political needs and needs to have rights of citizens respected. So to look at the issue in this way as a matter of trade-off was wrong to begin with. Now, you know, the whole region appears to be on the verge of change for the better. I think this will make for greater stability on a lasting basis, certainly from a longer-term point of view, once this period of turbulence or upheaval, if you will, is behind us. The issue for us is to really have the space to see this process through. Just as those processes are respected, you know, elsewhere, just as those needs are honored elsewhere, I think the needs of Arab citizens ought to be viewed exactly the same